Hey there, and welcome to another Curtis Stage video tutorial. This tutorial is covering Lightroom. This is part 3 in our series of Lightroom tutorials. This is for photography class, and what's happening in this tutorial is we're going to be capturing our images into Lightroom from our camera card or our camera. So if you have your card, if you have a computer where you can plug your card directly into it, if you're using, let's say, like a MacBook Pro that has a slot for an SD card, you can put the card right into that slot and import your photos from there. Or you can plug your camera into your computer as well via USB cable connected to your computer and to your camera. Now, before we get started in Lightroom, I want to talk about organization of our photos. And in my particular class that I'm teaching, we are organizing our photos on a USB drive. Now, and our catalogs. You may be watching this Lightroom tutorial and you might be organizing your catalog on your computer, and that's fine too. So your catalog and your image files should move together wherever they're at. They should always be together. So whether they're on your computer or in the Documents folder or in the Pictures folder or wherever that is, and Lightroom by default likes to put them in your Pictures folder and your catalog in there. But you can tell Lightroom where to store your files. You can store them in the cloud, you could store them on an external hard drive, and you can store them on a USB drive. And in my particular class that I'm teaching, it's just much easier if we're on a USB drive. So you'll see that I have a class folder, and inside that folder I have a couple folders here, just kind of demo purposes. So I have this folder here from our Lightroom demos, and inside there's some demos that we did. So inside this folder, I want to actually make another folder inside my stage photo 10 in the year that this class is running. I want to store another folder inside that folder. So I have a demos folder. That's for our in-class demos that we do. But I want to make a folder for assignments that I give to my students. And this is where we're going to store our photos, and this is where we're going to tell our catalog to look for these photos. So to do that, I'm going to do that here. I could also do it in Lightroom, but I'm going to do it here first before we get to Lightroom, and then we'll point our pictures to go into this folder. So I'm going to create a folder here. This folder is going to be called A1 for assignment 1, and you can use an underscore or a dash, either way. I like to use the underscores. And this would have your last name on it. So in my case, I'll put my last name on it. And this would also have what year or date. So I like to organize my images by client usually, so that would maybe be covered here. If I was shooting professionally, this would be the client name, and then I would probably, or maybe client name and project name and then the date. If you're a student, you might do the assignment name, your name, and then the date, and that's what we're going to do. So I've got the assignment name, which is assignment 1, my last name, which would be my student name, and then the date. And in this case, I'm just going to keep it general and call it spring 17. But that could be today's date, it could be this month, it could be whatever you want. For our class in particular, we're going to name them like this, and every single one of our assignments will be named like that. Okay, so we've got that ready to go, and now I'm going to open up Lightroom, and then I'm going to point Lightroom to this folder. So I'm in my catalog. You can see that I'm in my catalog. It says Stage Photo 10 Spring 17 Catalog. Remember, you can have a catalog for particular shoots. So let's say you were shooting a wedding, or you were shooting a fashion show, or you were shooting a award ceremony, an event, or a kid's soccer game. You can have a catalog for each one of those things. That's however you want to organize catalogs, but I don't recommend that. I recommend having a catalog per year, and then within that catalog every year, you have your folders that you organize your images in for that year. And then when the year's over, you can archive that catalog and move on to the next catalog. So that's how I do it professionally. We're doing it for our class, so we have a catalog specifically for this class. So you can see over here that I have my catalog that I had before here. It hasn't refreshed yet. So we'll get there in a second, but I'm going to click to import. When I get import, it's going to immediately see the photos that I have on my card. So I have my card plugged into the computer, my SD card, and you can see that it's reading my camera card with a few photos on it. These photos have random numbers with the extension, which is CR2, shot on a Canon. So this is a Canon RAW file. So I have 5 photos on this card, and I can see kind of thumbnails here to see what they look like, and I can decide, do I want to include one or not include one? I can uncheck photos that I do not want to include in the import. I can import all of the photos. I could import none of the photos, but that doesn't make any sense. Right up here at the top, I want to decide how I want to import these photos. And for our purposes, we want to copy the photos from the card to the folder that we're going to pick. So let's get there first. So down here on our right-hand side, you're going to see that we have our folder for this class. And then inside that folder, it's trying to create another folder here, 2017. Well, I just made a folder a second ago, so I want the pictures to go into that A1 folder. Once it goes into that A1 folder, you'll see that Lightroom is automatically going to organize it by your year and your date of your photos, and that's fine. I'm okay with this, leaving this like this. So we're going to just leave that structure, but we have our images going into our project folder. Now before I click import, I don't want these images to maybe have a random name on them. I want to give them a specific name for this project. So we're going to go up here where it says rename files, and we did this last tutorial when we renamed our files coming off of a folder. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to give it a custom text. I'm going to say A1 again. This will be assignment 1 dash with my last name. And then this one right here, we could have the specific date that this photo shoot happened, but we don't really need to because we've got those dates down here on the folder that this project is in, that the camera remembers what day these photos were shot. And so we don't really need to apply the date up here. I'm just gonna, either put in spring 17, that's fine. And you can see it'll give me an example of the photos right here. So A1 stage spring 17. You can see how I'm consistent in my naming so that it's easy for me to find files, photos, and folders as I move through Lightroom. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. I can press import. So when I click this, it's going to start importing photos. Now, it will import photos depending on how many photos you have coming from your card. It's going to take a while if you have a lot of photos, and it'll go quick if you don't have many photos. Remember, RAW files are about 18 to 25 megabytes with the cameras that we're using possibly. So those files could come in pretty quickly. If you're importing JPEG files, they're going to come in very quickly because JPEG files are compressed image files, and they're going to maybe take up 3 or 4 megabytes of space, and so they're going to come off your card onto the computer much quicker. All right, so here we go. We've got our files imported in, and we can see them right here. You can see over my structure, I've got my demos folder from the last project that we did. And right here, you can see that I've got my new folder with a 2017 folder with another folder in it with the 5 photos. You could rename this photo, either of these, but I wouldn't. I would just leave those dates there and let Lightroom do the dates. That's just better because it's matching the metadata coming off the camera. Now, remember, we are in library mode here. If I want to edit the pictures, I would go to develop mode. In library mode, there's some quick things you can do in library mode. You could quick develop your photos. You could add keywords to your photos. In other words, tagging your photos with information that maybe talks about the photo shoot that you were on. So if you want to if you take hundreds of photos, you might want to be able to find photos quickly. So keywording photos could go pretty quickly. And you could make a keyword list right over here to the side that would help you speed that process up. Metadata right here would have even more information, like the project title, captions, and you can do that for each photo on this shoot. So this is a quick little informational area that is kind of sidecard with all of your photos forever. So as you have if these photos are stored on your computer, this information is always there, including the date and time of the shoot, the size of the photos and pixel dimension, what the camera settings were, which is great, and what kind of camera, and maybe even the lens that you used. If you have GPS in your camera, it will also give you that information as well. All right, So this tutorial has been about bringing your images in from a SD card or your camera plugged into your computer, and this has once again been a Curtis Stage video tutorial. Hope to see you guys next time. Take care.